The Nevada desert stretches out like a wrinkled ochre blanket under the relentless sun. For decades, whispers and outlandish tales have clung to this arid landscape, all converging on one heavily guarded location, Area 51. Tonight, however, we're not interested in the folklore. We're interested in the truth, a truth buried deeper than the bedrock beneath those clandestine hangars. Our story begins with Dr. Evelyn Reed, a brilliant but somewhat jaded clinical psychologist. Evelyn had seen her fair share of human oddities, but nothing could have prepared her for the offer that landed on her desk, a top-secret assignment at a secure research facility in Nevada. The details were sparse, the pay was astronomical, and the NDA she had to sign could silence a banshee. Intrigued, and perhaps a little reckless, Evelyn accepted. After weeks of background checks that felt more invasive than an alien probe, she found herself on a blacked-out transport helicopter, the desolate expanse of the desert rushing beneath. As they descended, the iconic perimeter fences, the watchful cameras, and the stern-faced guards confirmed the rumors. This was indeed Area 51. But the secrets held within were far stranger than Evelyn could have ever imagined. Her mission? To analyze the dreams of sleepers, people kept in cryogenic stasis for decades. But as she would soon discover, these were no ordinary sleepers. Her guide, a stern man named Thorne with a jawline that could cut diamonds, led Evelyn through a labyrinth of sterile white corridors. The air hummed with a low, constant thrum of machinery. They passed through several security checkpoints, each more elaborate than the last, before arriving at a massive circular door that hissed open like the entrance to a pharaoh's tomb. The room beyond was cavernous and cold. Rows upon rows of sleek, metallic pods, frosted with ice, lined the walls. Inside each pod, a human figure floated in a pale, cryogenic fluid, their faces serene and deathly still. "Welcome to the nursery, Dr. Reed. These are your patients, the sleepers." Evelyn walked slowly down the aisle, her breath misting in the frigid air. The sheer scale of the operation was staggering. There were hundreds of pods. "Who are they?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "That's classified," Thorne replied curtly. "Your job is not to ask who they are, but what they dream. We've developed a technology called Somnlink that allows us to project and record their neural activity during REM sleep. Your task is to interpret these recordings, find patterns, recurring themes, anything that seems unusual." He led her to a console at the far end of the room. A large screen flickered to life, displaying a chaotic, swirling miasma of colors and shapes. "This," he said, gesturing to the screen, "is the dream of Sleeper 734. Good luck, Doctor. We're counting on you." And with that, he left her alone in the cold, humming silence, surrounded by the sleeping bodies and their silent, screaming dreams. The first few days were a blur of disorientation. Evelyn spent hours, then days, staring at the Somnlink's monitor, trying to make sense of the chaotic dreamscapes. The data was a torrent of abstract imagery, fragmented memories, and raw emotion. It was like trying to decipher a symphony played by an orchestra of madmen. The dreams of Sleeper 734 were filled with fleeting images of towering crystalline structures against a crimson sky. Sleeper 112 dreamt of swimming through vast, subterranean oceans lit by bioluminescent flora. Sleeper 45 dreamt of flying through swirling gaseous nebulae. It was all beautiful, terrifying, and utterly nonsensical. Thorne and his team offered no help, only silent, expectant pressure. But Evelyn was a pattern seeker. It was her gift, her curse. And on the seventh day, she found one. A symbol. It was small, almost subliminal, and flashed for a fraction of a second in a dream about a burning forest. A complex, geometric shape like a three-dimensional sigil. On its own, it meant nothing. But then she found it again, the exact same symbol, hidden in the reflection of a water droplet in another sleeper's dream. And then again and again, it appeared in the dreams of dozens of different sleepers, a tiny, constant thread woven into the fabric of their otherwise unique subconscious wanderings. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a connection, a shared piece of a puzzle she was just beginning to comprehend. For the first time since her arrival, the clinical detachment Evelyn prided herself on began to crack, replaced by a chilling premonition. These weren't just individual dreams she was watching. She was looking at a network.
Evelyn became obsessed. Sleep was a luxury she could no longer afford. She pored over the dream recordings, replaying them frame by frame, searching for any other recurring motifs, any other links between the sleepers. The symbol remained the most prominent, but slowly, painstakingly, other fragments began to emerge. Shared landscapes, bizarre alien vistas under twin suns. Shared emotions, a deep, pervasive sense of longing, of being far from home. And then there were the whispers. Faint, distorted sounds embedded within the dream audio. They were not words in any known language, but they had a rhythm, a cadence that hinted at communication. Evelyn started mapping the occurrences of the symbol, charting which sleepers dreamt of the alien landscapes, and noting when the whispers appeared. A pattern began to solidify, a terrifying implication taking shape in her mind. These weren't just random individuals with strange dreams. They were connected in a profound, almost psychic way. And the symbol was a key to understanding who they were, and more importantly, why they were here, suspended in cryogenic sleep beneath the Nevada desert. She had to know more. Ignoring Thorne's explicit instructions to only analyze the dream data, Evelyn began digging into the facility's restricted archives, searching for any information about the sleepers themselves, their identities, their origins, anything. Every file was heavily redacted, filled with blacked-out lines and cryptic codes. But she was a psychologist, trained to read between the lines. And what she was beginning to piece together sent a shiver down her spine, colder than the cryogenic chambers. One heavily redacted file, labeled Project Chimera, contained a series of old, grainy photographs. They were dated decades ago, some even before the official acknowledgement of Area 51's existence. The photographs depicted various stages of what appeared to be a clandestine operation. One showed a battered, metallic object, unmistakably of extraterrestrial origin, being hauled into a hangar. Others showed scientists in hazmat suits examining strange biological samples. But it was one particular series of images that stopped Evelyn's breath. They showed a group of individuals being escorted into the facility under heavy guard. These weren't typical military personnel or scientists. Their forms were subtly different, slightly taller, with elongated limbs and heads that seemed proportionally larger than humans. Some appeared frail, others possessed an unnerving stillness. And in the background of one photograph, barely visible but undeniably present, was the symbol. The same symbol from the dreams. Evelyn cross-referenced the dates on the photographs with fragmented notes in other files, mentions of biological integration and interspecies collaboration. A horrifying possibility began to dawn. The sleepers weren't just humans with strange dreams. They were hybrids, part human, part something else. And their shared dreams weren't random firings of the subconscious. They were a collective memory, a shared consciousness of a race not entirely of this earth. But why were they in cryogenic sleep? What was their purpose, and why was the government keeping their existence a secret with such fanatical intensity? She knew she was treading on dangerous ground, but the truth was a siren's call she couldn't ignore. She had to delve deeper, even if it meant risking everything. Accessing the physical files had reached a dead end. Too much was redacted, too much was missing. Evelyn realized she needed to go directly to the source. The Somnolink technology was her only window into the sleepers' minds, but it only provided the raw dream data. She needed more. She needed to understand how their minds were connected on a neurological level. Under the guise of optimizing the Somnolink interface, Evelyn began subtly probing the system's deeper architecture. She learned that each pod had direct neural interface ports used for monitoring and, presumably, maintaining the sleeper's cryogenic state. During one of Thorne's infrequent monitoring shifts in the nursery, Evelyn put her risky plan into action. Palming a small, unauthorized scanner she had managed to smuggle in, she waited for Thorne to turn his back, engrossed in the main console. With her heart pounding in her chest, she approached one of the pods, Sleeper 217, whose dreams were particularly vivid and often contained clearer fragments of the alien landscapes. With a quick, furtive movement, she plugged the scanner into the pod's data port. A stream of encrypted data flooded the scanner's tiny screen. It was raw neural information, far more detailed than the dream recordings. If she could decipher it, she might finally understand the nature of their connection, the secrets hidden within their dormant minds. But the risk was immense. If Thorne or any of the security personnel discovered her unauthorized access, the consequences would be severe, to say the least. She was playing a dangerous game, venturing into the deepest, most guarded secrets of Area 51.
The data from Sleeper 217 was a chaotic torrent, a language Evelyn didn't yet understand. But within the complex patterns of neural activity, she began to isolate recurring sequences, echoes of the whispers she had heard in the dream recordings. Using her knowledge of cognitive neuroscience and pattern recognition, she started to build a rudimentary translation key. It was slow, painstaking work, like deciphering an ancient hieroglyph with only a few fragmented clues. But with each small breakthrough, the pieces of the puzzle began to click into place. The whispers weren't just random sounds, they were a language. And the symbol wasn't just a visual motif, it was a word, a concept. It appeared to represent home or origin in this alien lexicon. As she delved deeper into the neural data, Evelyn discovered something even astonishing. The sleepers' minds weren't just sharing dreams, they were interconnected on a fundamental neurological level. Their neural pathways were subtly intertwined, forming a vast, silent network. It was as if they were all part of a single, colossal consciousness, fragmented and dormant within their cryogenic prisons. The recurring symbol, the shared landscapes, the whispers, they were all echoes of this interconnectedness, fragments of a collective memory reaching across the boundaries of individual minds. Evelyn realized the horrifying truth. These weren't just human-alien hybrids, they were something more, something unified. And their long sleep wasn't just stasis, it was a form of enforced dormancy, a way to suppress their collective consciousness. But why? What were they capable of if they were to awaken? The implications were staggering, and the weight of this discovery pressed down on Evelyn like the cold of the nursery itself. The more Evelyn understood the sleepers' interconnected minds, the more uneasy she became. Their collective dreams hinted at a powerful, latent consciousness, a potential that the government clearly feared. As she continued her unauthorized analysis, she noticed subtle shifts in the dream data. The whispers were becoming clearer, more coherent. The shared landscapes were becoming more vivid, almost tangible. It was as if their collective mind was stirring, slowly awakening from its decades-long slumber. One night, while Evelyn was hunched over her console, deciphering a particularly complex sequence of neural data, the lights in the nursery flickered.
A low hum, louder than the usual thrum of the machinery, filled the air. On the main monitoring screen, the vital signs of one of the sleepers, Sleeper 001, located in the center of the chamber, spiked erratically. Then one by one, other pods began to show similar anomalies. The eerie blue light within the pods intensified, and the frost on their surfaces began to melt, revealing the still figures within. Alarms blared to life, their shrill cries echoing through the underground facility. Red lights flashed on the control panels. Agent Thorne and a team of armed security personnel rushed into the nursery, their faces a mask of confusion and alarm. "What's happening?" Thorne barked, his eyes darting between the awakening pods and Evelyn's console. Evelyn watched in stunned silence as more and more pods began to glow. Her unauthorized probing, her attempts to understand their connection, had somehow triggered a chain reaction. The sleepers were awakening, and no one, least of all her, knew what would happen next. One by one, the cryogenic pods hissed open. Pale, slender figures emerged, blinking in the harsh fluorescent light. They were androgynous in appearance, with delicate features, large dark eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom, and skin that had a faint, almost translucent quality. Some stumbled, disoriented after decades of suspended animation, but others moved with a fluid grace that was unsettlingly alien. The armed guards, trained for conventional threats, hesitated, their weapons wavering. These were not the hostile extraterrestrials of their training manuals. There was an aura of quiet intelligence surrounding them, a palpable sense of a collective awareness. Agent Thorne barked orders, his voice tight with apprehension, but his commands seemed to hang in the air, unanswered. The awakened beings moved as one, their collective consciousness guiding their actions. They paid little attention to the bewildered soldiers or the frantic commands of Agent Thorne. Instead, they focused their gaze upwards, towards the ceiling of the vast underground chamber. A low, resonant hum emanated from them, growing in intensity, and the air began to shimmer. Suddenly, a swirling vortex of light appeared high above, tearing open a rift in the very fabric of reality. It was a portal, a gateway to somewhere else, revealing a glimpse of a star-dusted sky unlike anything seen on Earth, filled with constellations of unfamiliar stars and the ethereal glow of distant alien worlds. The awakened beings began to levitate, rising slowly towards the open portal, their pale forms bathed in its otherworldly light. Evelyn watched in awe, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. The cryogenic sleep wasn't just suppression, it was a waiting period. They had been dormant, waiting for a signal, for a time when they could rejoin their own kind. As the last of the beings floated through the shimmering gateway, one of them turned back, its large dark eyes meeting Evelyn's. In that silent exchange, she felt a profound sense of peace, not threat. A message, perhaps. We are going home. Then they were gone, the portal dissolving behind them, leaving only the stunned silence and the lingering scent of ozone in the cold underground chamber. Evelyn stood there, the sole witness to an event that would forever remain a secret, a truth too extraordinary for the world to comprehend. The sleepers of Area 51 were awake, and they had gone home, leaving humanity to wonder about the vast, unknowable universe that lay beyond the confines of their own small world. And as the silence deepened, Evelyn knew one thing for certain: her life, and perhaps the understanding of humanity itself, would never be the same.